Sirens ripped through Brackett Harbor just before dawn. The kind of layered wail that bounced off water and glass and unfinished concrete until the whole shoreline sounded like it was under attack. Mitchell Anderson rolled up behind a SWAT Bearcat in his mud-splashed K9 Tahoe, killed the lights, and took 1 second to let his spine unlock. Old injuries always complained in the cold. His lower back felt like rusted cable. His left knee clicked when he twisted. None of it mattered once he opened the rear door. Rook launched down, all long legs and sharp ears, and barely contained voltage. A young Belgian Malinois with a chest too narrow and paws too big for his frame. 6 months out of certification, first live tactical call-out, and already carrying every opinion in the county on his back. Academy Fluff, one of the SWAT guys had called him last week, loud enough for everyone to hear. Instagram dog. Mitchell clipped in the lead, checked the harness, and looked up at the skeleton of the luxury condo rising over the harbor. 12 stories of poured concrete and money. Halstead development banners hung from fencing. Brackett Harbor reimagined. Future rooftop pool. Private fitness suites, panoramic coastal views. Security camera domes blinked like wet eyes along the perimeter, but half the site was still raw. Open utility shafts, temporary lighting, exposed ductwork, rebar stubs waiting for walls. A patrol sergeant met him at the tape. Caller was female, young. Whispered she was locked in. Said she could hear men. Then line dropped. Trace pinged from inside. He kept his voice low, then nodded toward the stack of dark uniforms by the entrance. They've got command. Command meant Lieutenant Calhoun, SWAT lead, broad shoulders and a buzz cut, and the permanent expression of a man disappointed by everyone else's IQ. Calhoun glanced at Rook and smirked. You brought the puppy. He's certified. He's unproven. Mitchell's jaw flexed once. So were we once. Calhoun ignored that. We'll clear top down. You stay in support. No freelance heroics. This isn't one of your overseas stories. Mitchell didn't answer. He hadn't told war stories in years. People still gave him that line anyway, as if surviving Fallujah meant he couldn't read a hallway in Massachusetts. He took his position, let SWAT breach the temporary lobby doors, and followed once they called the first floor secure. Inside, the building smelled like wet cement, sawdust, ozone from temporary wiring, and something metallic underneath it all. Rook's nose worked in quick, slicing pulls as they moved through taped-off corridors, lit by hanging bulbs. Voices echoed weird in unfinished spaces. Every command sounded farther away than it was. 3rd floor clear, 4th floor clear, mechanical level clear. By the 6th floor, the adrenaline static in the building had shifted. Mitchell felt it first through the lead. Rook's gait changed from eager pull to focused drift, zigzagging toward a side passage half blocked by wrapped drywall stacks. A plywood sign read Util/ authorized personnel only. The corridor beyond narrowed, then dead-ended at a concrete wall with a fresh metal panel, bolted over what looked like older access framing. Rook stopped hard. Nose up, nose down, 1 step left, 1 step back. Then he sat and locked eyes. Final alert. No hesitation. Mitchell raised a hand. K9 alert. Possible source behind panel. Need tools. 2 SWAT operators turned. One shrugged. The other laughed through his mic. On what? Drywall glue? Mitchell didn't blink. Dogs in odor. Could be blood, decomposition, human confinement, accelerant, a dozen things we don't see. We open it. Calhoun came up with 2 men behind him, helmet tucked under one arm, like he was arriving to settle a bar argument. Negative. Structural says that corridor's sealed for pump upgrades, not part of current floor plan. Then floor plans wrong. Calhoun leaned close enough for Mitchell to smell coffee on his breath. You get one dog alert in a construction maze and want me tearing out utility walls while we still have uncleared levels? Not happening. Rook stayed seated, trembling with intensity, eyes fixed on the panel. Mitchell tried once more, voice flat. Sir, this is a hard final. We at least mark and come back with facilities. One of the younger operators snorted. Mark it for the puppy's scrapbook. Laughter skimmed the hallway, quick, ugly, the same nervous pack laughter Mitchell had heard before bad entries, overseas, the sound men made to convince themselves. Uncertainty was someone else's problem. He looked at the bolted metal panel, at the fresh caulk beating the edges, at the fine scrape marks on the floor where heavy weight had been dragged recently, then at Calhoun. Logged, Calhoun said. Move. Mitchell stood there a beat too long. Calhoun noticed. That an order issue, Anderson? Mitchell gave one short shake on the lead and Rook rose. No, sir. They moved on. By 7:12, command declared the building clear. By 9:28, the call came from Public Works, body in the canal behind Lockwood Drainage, less than half a mile from the condo site. Female, young, hands bound. Mitchell was still stripping tape residue off Rook's vest when dispatch relayed the name. Tessa Velez, 18. The whispering 911 caller. He drove silent to the canal and arrived to blue tarps, yellow tape, and officers trying not to look at the water. Tessa lay on a gurney under a thermal blanket. But the blanket didn't hide the shape of zip ties cutting into swollen wrists. Mud slicked her jeans. One sneaker was missing. Dark water dripped from her hair in steady ticks onto asphalt. A detective he knew from narcotics, Perez, stood near the ME van with his notebook shut. Lungs full of brackish water, he said quietly when Mitchell approached. She was alive when she hit. Mitchell looked toward the canal mouth, then back toward the skyline where the condo cranes stood against a brightening sky. Half a mile. In a town this dense, that distance meant pathways, not chance. Last seen, he asked. Rooftop party last night. Invite-only crowd. Live stream clips all over social before they got scrubbed. Perez handed him a printout from an evidence clipboard. 3 faces highlighted in marker: Bo Halstead, Dylan Mercer, Reed Kincaid, matching smiles like they'd been raised in the same mirror. Bo, son of Cole Halstead, the developer reshaping half the harbor. Dylan, son of Dr. Grant Mercer, hospital director and foundation board king. Reed, son of Deputy Chief Owen Kincaid, 23 years with Brackett PD, handshake known in every courthouse corridor. All 3 already carried sealed juvenile records from boys being boys incidents. The papers never detailed. Drag race injury, assault at a prep tournament, probation violations that vanished, viral prank arrests reduced to community service. Their names floated through Brackett Harbor like immunity cards. Mitchell took the sheet, held it a second too long, then headed straight for command. At headquarters, the conference room smelled like stale toner and institutional coffee. Calhoun stood by the whiteboard with the operations timeline. Captain Runnels sat at the end of the table, tie already loosened for damage control mode. Mitchell didn't sit. We need to reopen the condo immediately. 6th floor utility corridor, full forensic entry. K9 alerted on a sealed panel. Runnels held up a hand. SWAT completed clearance. SWAT completed what it was allowed to complete. Calhoun's face hardened. Careful. Mitchell ignored him. The caller from that building is dead 2 hours later in a canal. Bound. There's no world where we don't rerun the scene. Runnels tapped a pen against the table. You filed the alert in your after-action note? Yes. Good. Then it's documented. Mitchell stared. Documented doesn't save the next girl. Silence spread tight and hot. Runnels leaned back. Operational embarrassment is not a basis for unilateral redeployment. State will review if warranted. You mean if politically survivable? Calhoun took one step forward. That's insubordination. Mitchell met his eyes. Then write it down. Runnels did exactly that. One more incident report, he said, and Mitchell's post-retirement contract would be terminated. No appeal. City liability, chain of command, trust in specialized units. The phrases came out like laminated policy cards. Mitchell listened until the captain was done, nodded once, and walked out before he said something he couldn't pull back. Outside, he sat in his truck with both hands on the wheel while Rook panted in the back, whimpering once, sensing the charge in him. Through the windshield, he could see the harbor road where new street signs bore familiar names: Halstead Way, Mercer Pavilion, Kincaid Fieldhouse. In Brackett Harbor, philanthropy was just another architecture for control. Tessa's memorial was held 3 nights later in St. Agnes Parish Hall, where fluorescent lights hummed and folding chairs squealed against tile. Her classmates had taped photos to poster board: Tessa at a beach bonfire, Tessa in a grocery store aisle wearing grapes as fake earrings, Tessa in a graduation cap, grinning into wind. On a side table, votive candles flickered beside a framed picture, and a handwritten sign that read, "Speaker Name." Mitchell stayed near the back wall in plain clothes, hands folded, trying to be invisible. He learned at too many funerals that uniforms changed grief into spectacle. Rook waited in the Tahoe under the awning, windows cracked, watching people pass like he was guarding a perimeter no one else could see. When the line for condolences thinned, Tessa's mother approached him. Elena Velez looked brittle, in the way people do when their bodies are still trying to deny reality. Her lipstick was uneven. Her fingers shook around a tissue she'd shredded into paper threads. "You were there that morning," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "They said they looked everywhere." Mitchell didn't lie. They looked where they chose. Her eyes flinched, then settled. She reached into her coat pocket and pressed something into his palm. A phone with a shattered corner and hairline cracks spidering across the screen. Cheap model. Mud still packed in the charging port. "She hid it in her shoe," Elena whispered. "Police logged the other one from her bag, not this. I found it when they returned her clothes." She glanced toward the front of the hall, where reporters hovered near the door, pretending not to listen. "I don't know who to trust." Mitchell closed his fingers around the phone. "Did anyone else see this?" "No." He nodded. "Keep it that way." Elena's face tightened. "They're saying she was unstable, that she drank too much, that she made things up." Mitchell felt something cold settle behind his ribs. That narrative had moved fast, too fast for random rumor. "She called 911, he said. "That's not made up." Elena swallowed hard. "Find where she was, please." After the memorial, he sat in the Tahoe under a sodium orange streetlight with a portable charger and an old extraction cable from his go bag. Rook rested his head between the front seats, ears twitching at every passing car. The phone took 3 tries to boot. Battery at 3%. No lock code at first, then a failed biometric prompt from water damage. Mitchell bypassed what he could with forensic software. He wasn't technically authorized to run off network. A gallery opened, screenshots, party clips, blurry floor photos, a short video of Boots descending metal stairs. Last image file, time-stamped 4/11, showed a rusted hatch inset in concrete. Spray-painted across it in shaky white letters, "Lower." The battery died before he could pull metadata. He stared at the black screen, hearing again Rook's hard sit in front of that sealed panel, hearing Calhoun's laugh-fed hallway, seeing zip ties on a gurney. His phone buzzed with a command email. You are directed to remain available for internal review regarding procedural conduct at 0500 callout. Do not engage independent investigative activity. Mitchell deleted nothing, saved everything, then opened his contacts and hovered over a name he hadn't called in 11 months. Mason Keene, State Bureau investigator, one of the few men outside local chain who owed nobody in Brackett Harbor a favor. He didn't hit dial yet, not in that parking lot, not while grief still shook his hands. He looked back at the dead phone, then at Rook. Lower, he said quietly. Rook lifted his head, alert at the change in tone, ready like the call had already come. If Mitchell obeyed orders, Tessa would become a cautionary mural, a scholarship fund, a candlelight hashtag, and then a file archived under unresolved contradictions. The three boys would age into board seats and campaign donors. The men who laughed in hallways would keep clearing the right rooms and skipping the wrong doors. Whatever sat behind that sealed corridor would be patched, painted, and sold at waterfront rates by spring. If he pushed, he could lose the badge, pension supplement, and the last structure keeping his war habits pointed somewhere useful. He could also lose against people who owned judges' first names and police radio traffic. He turned the key, engine rumbling awake. Status quo's over, he murmured more to himself than the dog. Rook's tail thumped once against the cage as they pulled into the wet, dark streets of Brackett Harbor, toward a city lit by inherited names and hidden corridors, where the wrong kind of silence had just become a death sentence. Rain needled the windshield as Mitchell took Harbor Loop without lights, the wipers beating a metronome against the siren echo still stuck in his head. Rook stood braced in the back, claws ticking against the kennel floor every time Mitchell cut a corner. At the next red, Mitchell plugged Tessa's cracked phone into the inverter again and watched the dead screen stay dead. Come on, he muttered. It buzzed once, then flickered to 1% and a warning icon. He didn't try to open photos this time. He went straight to file properties, pulled what metadata he could before it died again, and read the GPS tag off the last frame with the rusted hatch. Not random, not rooftop, a utility easement line running under the Halstead condo footprint and out toward Lockwood drainage. Lower. He took the next right toward the construction perimeter. The site looked abandoned at midnight, all cranes and black glass and temporary chain link breathing in the rain. Mitchell parked off Commercial Pier, killed the engine, and listened. No generators, no voices, just surf-slapping pylons and the distant hum of Route 9. He changed into a dark shell, clipped a low-lumen light to his vest, and swapped Rook's standard lead for a 30-foot tracking line. No bite work unless I say, he told the dog. Find, show, hold. Rook's ears snapped forward. Mitchell cut through a gap in fencing where bolt ties had been snipped and bent back. Not by teenagers, clean, recent, deliberate. He marked the point on his phone and moved toward the rear storm apron, where runoff drains fed into city culverts. He dropped to a knee beside the nearest grate, let Rook scent the metal bars, then fed him the command. Search lower. Rook inhaled once and pulled hard to the east trench. Mitchell followed down a slick concrete channel, boots skidding on algae, shoulders screaming when he caught himself. 40 yards in, the channel narrowed under a service bridge and opened into a maintenance throat where newer concrete met older brick. The smell changed there. Diesel, bleach, stagnant water, and something medicinal cutting through the rot. Rook slowed, nose carving side to side, then tracked along the wall to a set of parallel scuffs in the grit, tire marks narrow width, too close together for a truck, cart, or dolly, drag trail alongside as if one wheel had locked and been forced. Mitchell photographed everything with timestamp and scale tabs from his kit. 10 feet farther, his light caught plastic wedged behind a pipe saddle, 2 snapped syringe caps, and a cloudy vial label half-soaked but legible enough for numbers. He bagged them. Lot C-17B. Mercer General Pharmacy Unit, he read under his breath, jaw tightening. Hospital inventory in a flood tunnel. Rook pulled again, this time toward a rusted steel access hatch, set low in the wall, just high enough for a person to duck through. White paint scrawled across it in hurried letters, now streaked by rainwater and rust. Lower. Mitchell touched the hinge. Fresh grease under the corrosion, recently used. He glanced up the channel, listened, then opened it 3 inches. Air breathed out cold and damp, carrying the metallic tang he'd noticed in the condo, plus old mold and electrical ozone. The passage beyond was narrow utility concrete, slope descending toward the harbor side. Someone had run temporary cable lights at some point, then stripped most of them out, leaving zip-tie tails and anchors in the wall. At knee height, he found fibers caught on a bolt head, thick, twisted polypropylene, blue and white braid. He bagged that too. Rook hit a hard alert at a side recess screened by plywood. Mitchell eased it aside and found a staging pocket. Empty water cases, duct tape roll, black contractor bags, and 1 torn strip of silver thermal blanket. No people, no voices, but recent enough that condensation still clung where items had sat. His radio crackled, suddenly alive with routine patrol chatter from sectors above. He had it on scan only, volume low. Then came a familiar call sign. Unit 34 doing extra watch near Halstead. Site per command request. Per command request? Mitchell froze for a beat. Then he shut his light and backed out with Rook, retracing every step, leaving the hatch as found. By the time Unit 34 rolled past the perimeter, Mitchell and his dog were already in shadow on the outer seawall, rain plastering both of them dark. In the Tahoe, he laid the evidence bags on a clean tarp and stared at them like they were live rounds. He needed this locked into a chain beyond Brackett Harbor before someone made it disappear. He finally hit dial on Mason Keene. The state investigator answered on the 4th ring, voice rough with sleep. Anderson? You still owe me for Worcester docks. A pause. That was 12 years ago. Then interest accrued. I need a blind drop log now. Medical vials, tunnel trace. Probable trafficking corridor, under Halstead property. Keene came fully awake in one breath. You on duty? I'm on a clock. That's not what I asked. Mitchell looked at Rook, soaked and panting quietly, eyes fixed on him. Can you receive evidence or not? Another pause, shorter. Old ferry lot, camera pole E6, 30 minutes. And Mitch, if this is tied to local brass, don't send it through your server first. Wasn't planning to. He drove. By 3:40, Keene had the bags, signed under a preliminary state intake that gave them a number no Brackett supervisor could erase with a phone call. He also gave Mitchell something else, a name. Your victim reached out to our office 2 weeks ago, Keene said, leaning against his sedan under the dead ferry floodlights. Not a full report, just a flagged tip in the youth exploitation portal. Mentioned private parties, girls getting sent to recover after overdoses that didn't line up with hospital records. She uploaded nothing usable, then stopped responding. Mitchell felt his pulse in his scar tissue. Why didn't anyone come in? Jurisdiction triage. Anonymous teen tip in a county that says everything's fine gets queued behind active kidnappings. I'm not proud of it. Keene held his gaze. I am now assigned? Mitchell gave one sharp nod. Then keep this off local channels until you can hit with warrants. You just gave me probable cause breadcrumbs, not warrants. Then start running. Dawn was bleeding into the harbor when Mitchell pulled into headquarters for internal review. Captain Runnels was waiting with HR and a typed notice already on the table. Tampering with an active scene. Unauthorized evidence collection. Dereliction of command restrictions. Suspended pending investigation. Service weapon and credentials surrendered by noon. Calhoun watched from the doorway, expression blank and satisfied all at once. Mitchell signed where they told him because refusing would only let them drag him out and call it unstable behavior. He kept his face still, kept his voice level. When Runnels said, "You understand this is for departmental integrity," Mitchell almost laughed. Instead, he said, "Integrity would have opened the wall." They took his badge. They did not take Rook. As he turned to leave, Calhoun added, "Your dog stays kenneled until this is over. Don't make that another charge." Mitchell looked back at him. Try. He walked out with Rook at heel and every bridge behind him burning in controlled silence. By afternoon, the town had started rewriting Tessa in real time. One witness from the rooftop party told Channel 8 she'd been emotional and dramatic all week. Another said she'd left voluntarily with an older boyfriend no one knew. Both statements contradicted what they'd told Patrol the first day. Both clips ran every hour with soft focus photos of Tessa from social media and a Chiron reading tragic mental health crisis. Mitchell watched from his kitchen counter while stripping mud from Rook's harness in a sink full of gray water. Then the station cut to drone footage of a lake house 30 miles inland. Bo Halstead shirtless on a dock rail, Dylan Mercer in mirrored sunglasses, Reed Kincaid raising a bottle toward the camera. Someone off-screen yelled, "False accusations season," and all three laughed like they'd won a game. Mitchell turned the TV off before the segment ended. His burner buzzed. Keen. Lab rushed your vial label, sedative class, restricted stock. Lot linked to Mercer General satellite inventory, Keen said. Also that rope fiber. Preliminary visual match to marine tow line sold in bulk to one of Halstead's marina contractors last quarter. Not courtroom yet, but directionally ugly. Mitchell stepped onto the porch, scanning the street by habit. Any movement on tunnel permits? I pulled redevelopment maps. There are maintenance corridors under that condo that don't appear on public plans. Labeled storm pump access and utility redundancy. Sign-off chain includes city engineering, fire safety, and a special tactical review stamp. From who? Keen exhaled. Deputy Chief Kincaid. Mitchell closed his eyes for a second. Of course. Here's the harder part, Keen said. 2 prior missing person files. Girls 19 and 21, both last seen near influencer events, tied to the same 3 boys. Both eventually found in recovery clinics, outside county lines with forged consent paperwork, and heavy sedation histories. Families were told they had voluntary substance episodes. Clinics owned by? Shell LLCs. One shell traces to Mercer Foundation Legal Counsel. Another to a holding company sharing address space with Halstead Development. Everything looped. Money, access, uniforms, medicine. Keen continued. I can't kick doors with this yet. I need either a live victim location, financial transfer hard copy, or admission-level recording. Mitchell glanced through the window at Rook, now asleep by the door with paws twitching in dreams. What if we can get one tonight? You suspended, remember? Anything you do wrong taints everything I touch. Then tell me what right looks like. Document, don't seize. Observe, don't engage unless life threat. And Anderson, if local cops show up first, assume compromise. After he hung up, Mitchell spread city maps across his table and overlaid them with permit diagrams Keene encrypted over. Lines that looked separate on paper converged underground. Condo utility spines feeding storm channels feeding marina pump rooms feeding private service docks. Every place Rook had alerted was either on that route or adjacent to it. Not missed, skipped. He started knocking anyway. At Tess's old coffee job, the manager first agreed to talk, then called back 10 minutes later saying she misremembered details and had legal advice now. A rideshare driver who'd posted about picking up a crying girl near Halstead Tower deleted the post before Mitchell reached him, then swore he'd never made that fare. A building security contractor met Mitchell in a grocery parking lot, handed over a thumb drive of camera backups, and by evening texted, "Forget I contacted you. My kids' school photos got mailed to my house with no return address. By sunset, even the parish volunteer who'd seen bruises on Tess's arm at Memorial Prep said she might have been mistaken in the lighting." Pressure was moving faster than truth. Then one door opened. A night janitor at Mercer General agreed to meet behind the loading dock during smoke break, baseball cap low, hands shaking so hard his cigarette burned crooked. "I clean pharmacy annex," he whispered. 3 times this month, narc cabinet counts got corrected before morning audit. Not by pharmacists, by admin badge override. Then we had fake admissions sent to recovery transfer. No patients in the rooms, just charts. Who signed transfers? Sometimes Dr. Mercer's office manager, sometimes blank and filled later. He swallowed. "I saw one girl, real one, barely conscious. Wrist marks like zip ties." Mitchell kept his voice even. "Can you testify?" The janitor stared at the ground. "I got 2 daughters. You can testify sealed. I can disappear fire justice sealed." He crushed the cigarette under his shoe. "I'm sorry." He left before Mitchell could answer. At 2213, Keene forwarded a county subpoena return with 3 lines highlighted. "Condo exterior camera archive. Corrupted due to water intrusion. Rooftop access logs. Unavailable. Maintenance reset. SWAT body cam from initial call out. Partial files. Segment loss during upload. Segment loss." On the one operation where Rook had alerted behind a wall, Mitchell sat at his table in the dark, reading the line over and over until the words blurred. His secure laptop pinged with a completed extraction from Tess's cracked phone, finally brute-forced by a forensic contact Keene trusted. Hidden partition recovered. 1 encrypted upload package. Mitchell plugged in headphones and opened it. First came 32 seconds of black screen and wind noise, then image resolved. Rooftop night, string lights, harbor glitter below, music thumping bass through the mic. Tess's camera was angled low, filming from near her jacket pocket. Bo Halstead's voice came in clear, smug, and sloppy with alcohol. "I'm telling you, it's perfect. If one freaks out and calls, dispatch lights up, SWAT goes loud at the front, everybody watches helmets and rifles, right? Meanwhile, transfer goes through lower, always lower." Another voice, Dylan, laughing. "My dad says hospitals love paperwork. You put detox hold on anything." Reed Kincaid, closer now, words clipped. "Shut up on names." Bo again. "Relax. Our dads built this city. Kincaid literally signs the tactical maps. Halstead dug the tunnels. Mercer stocks the sleepy juice. It's a machine." The video jolted, as if Tessa shifted or got bumped. Someone in frame turned, and for half a second Mitchell caught Reed's profile. Then the camera dipped to concrete stairs, boots, Darkness. File 2 was a document scan, grainy but readable. Hospital inventory, transfer sheet with the lot numbers and a handwritten notation. Divert C-17B to Harbor Recovery Intake, same lot code as the vial in Mitchell's evidence bag. C-17B. Mitchell's throat tightened unexpectedly. He knew that code from a different file, a different grief. Last year, his former teammate, Aaron Pike's 17-year-old son, had overdosed on counterfeit pills at a graduation party 2 counties over. Toxicology had listed fentanyl analog batch reference C-17B distribution cluster, source unresolved. Mitchell had sat through that funeral in the back pew, saying little, telling himself his time in uniform was over, and narcotics pipelines were someone else's fight. Now the numbers stared back at him from Tessa's evidence, from Mercer stock, from tunnels under a condo where SWAT had been misdirected. Private grief collapsed into the case like a wall giving way. He took off the headphones and looked at Rook, who had lifted his head at the stillness, waiting for the next command. "This is bigger than her," Mitchell said quietly, then corrected himself. "No, it's exactly her, and all the others." His phone rang before he could call Keene. Unknown number, blocked ID. He answered without speaking, a male voice, calm, local. "You're suspended, Anderson. Go fish, walk your dog, leave this alone." Click. He set the phone down very carefully. Then he called Keene and transmitted the upload package over encrypted relay. Keene listened in silence until Bo's "It's a machine" line ended. When he spoke, his voice had changed. "This is conspiracy with official facilitation, trafficking, diversion, obstruction, maybe homicide multiplier. Can you move?" "I can move if I know where the machine runs tonight." Mitchell turned back to the maps spread across his table, to the corridor labels and pump rooms and service docks, to the one word painted on rusted steel: lower. "I can make them move," he said. "Give them a reason to panic." Keene didn't respond for a beat. "What are you thinking?" Mitchell's eyes stayed on the marina sublevel, tied to Halstead's storage leases. "A leak they can't ignore. Federal auditors coming for marina records at midnight. If they've got drives, drugs, or live cargo in those tunnels, they'll try to burn or relocate before seizure. That's entrapment adjacent. That's observation with probable cause. Your words." Keene cursed under his breath then. "If you do this, you do it with recording and GPS continuity. No cowboy breach unless immediate life threat. I'll stage state tactical outside local radio net and pull federal on standby. You send me one live visual of contraband or captive. I trigger warrants and roll." Mitchell looked at Rook again. The dog stood now, sensing mission in his posture, tail still, eyes bright. "I'll need a harness cam with real-time feed," Mitchell said, "and I need it in under 2 hours. I can get you one from our tech van. Then meet me at Ferry Lot, same pole." He ended the call, loaded fresh batteries, and reached for Rook's vest. Outside, Brackett Harbor glittered with donor names and clean facades, while under it all the hidden routes waited in concrete dark, exactly where a rookie dog had tried to tell them to look. Mitchell drove back toward the ferry lot with one hand on the wheel and the other thumbing out the bait message from a burner account Keene had prepped. Federal audit. Task force, serving midnight seizure, at Halstead, Marina Sublevel Records. No logos, no official language. Just enough specificity to travel fast in the right group chats. At pole E6, Keene was already there beside an unmarked state van, rear doors open to a portable monitor rack and a tangle of charging bricks, rain haloed in the floodlights. A tech in a knit cap snapped a compact camera module onto a K9 harness mount, while Keene handed Mitchell an encrypted relay phone. Feed runs through state LTE, then bounces to hard capture in Worcester, Keene said. If local wipes servers, we still have the stream. Latency? 2 seconds, give or take. Mitchell knelt while the tech fitted Rook. The dog held still, vibrating with anticipation. Keene watched him work, then said, "You sure about this leak?" "No. I'm sure panic makes people sloppy. They could also go to ground for a month." Mitchell tightened the strap. "People like this don't trust storage. They trust control. If they think auditors are minutes out, they'll touch the evidence themselves." Keene gave a reluctant nod. "Then we race their fathers." Mitchell hit send. For 17 minutes, nothing happened. Then everything did. Keene's second phone started lighting up with chatter scraped from local scanner apps and private watch channels. A harbor security supervisor posted about late-night federal black SUVs that didn't exist. 2 marina employees clocked in remotely, then clocked out within 4 minutes. Halstead Development's private facilities number pinged 6 calls to a burner routed through Providence. And at 23:01, a real fire alarm tripped at Halstead Marina administrative offices. "Diversion," Mitchell said. Keene was already moving. "State fire notified?" "Delayed in dispatch queue," the tech answered, eyes on tablet. "Local PD marked it low priority electrical fault." Mitchell and Keene looked at each other at the same time. That wasn't panic. That was counterplay. Keene swore. "They're burning paper trail first." Another alert hit. Hospital network login from Dr. Mercer's executive credentials, after hours, remote terminal. Then a second, records purge request queued on Harbor Recovery Admissions Database. Mitchell felt the floor drop under the operation he'd just built. They're scrubbing digital and hard copy in parallel. "And someone fed them our bait fast enough to respond in sequence," Keene snapped. "We've got a leak above my lane or inside my lane." The tech shoved a tablet toward them. "Also, this just hit local CAD BOLO for suspended K9 officer Mitchell Anderson. Possible armed trespass, emotionally disturbed, connected to active arson inquiry." Mitchell went still. "They're pre-labeling me before contact." Keene's jaw locked. "If patrol grabs you, defense gets to call this a vendetta by a rogue cop. Everything you touch turns poison." A fourth alert came in, quieter and worse. The janitor from Mercer General, unresponsive in his car behind the loading dock, suspected overdose. No foul play indicated. Mitchell stared at the screen until the words stopped being words. No foul play. Keene read his face and lowered his voice. "Mitch, he talked to me 6 hours ago." "I know. He said he had daughters." Keene put a hand on his shoulder once, hard. "This is escalation. They're clearing witnesses and writing the story in advance. If they finish tonight, we don't just lose Tess's case. We lose every missing girl tied to it." Mitchell looked down at Rook, camera light blinking green against rain-dark fur. "Then we stop them before they finish." They split the approach. Keene would stage a state tactical element outside local radio net at the old bait warehouse 2 blocks inland. Mitchell, off books and already burned, would run Rook through the lower flood channel and feed live video as probable cause trigger. No engagement unless life threat. No heroics. By 23:27, Mitchell and Rook were back in the concrete throat, beneath the condo easement, moving fast and silent through ankle-deep runoff. The harness feed was stable at first. Rust stains, cable anchors, tunnel turns, timestamp in upper right. At 23:34, static flickered across the image. Keen, you seeing this? Mitchell whispered into throat mic. Keen's voice came clipped in his earpiece. Seeing packet loss. Hold position. Mitchell pressed against the wall while Rook trembled forward, nose locked on airflow from the marina side. The feed recovered for 4 seconds, then died to gray hash. Jammer, Keen said. Someone put up an RF blanket near sub-level pump rooms. We still have audio intermittent. Keep moving only if you can maintain body cam continuity. Mitchell tapped his chest unit. Red record light was on. Local capture. No uplink guarantee. He advanced another 30 yards and found why the jammer was working. A contractor cart parked across the tunnel with 2 portable battery packs and a cheap signal disruptor rig zip-tied to the handle. Sloppy hardware. Professional intent. He filmed it, stepped past it, and motioned Rook onward. At the first marina branch, voices echoed ahead. Male, hurried. Grab all drives. Not just the black case. Dad said 10 minutes. Where's Reed? Mitchell dropped to a knee behind a concrete buttress and angled the chest cam around edge. 3 figures in rain shells moved through a lit service alcove, faces partly masked but unmistakable in gait and arrogance. Beau's watch flashed when he pointed. Dylan carried a duffel. A 4th man in a security jacket wheeled a gray crate marked Pump Maintenance. No captives in sight. Kane, visual on subjects, Mitchell whispered. At least 3, possibly 4 support. I need your team push now. Only static answered, then fragments. Repeat. Bridge unit held. Local traffic stopped blocking. Mitchell tried again. Keen? Nothing. Above ground, someone had cut his backup off. He made a choice he hated. Trail instead of confront. Rook tracked low and silent, but at the next bend one of the men glanced back, saw movement and shouted. A flashlight beam knifed the tunnel. Who's there? Mitchell flattened, pulled Rook behind a pump pedestal, and held breath as boots pounded closer. The beam swept inches past his boot toe, then snapped away when another voice yelled from deeper in, Forget it! We're late! Move! The footsteps retreated. Mitchell exhaled, counting once, twice, and followed at distance until he reached the sub-level record room access. Too late. Flame already licked along shelving inside. Accelerant stink hit like a slap. Paper boxes collapsed inward, labels curling black. A laptop sat on the floor, hard drive shattered with a hammer. He filmed everything, but evidence was becoming smoke in real time. And then a sound cut through the fire hiss. One thin, muffled cry from somewhere beyond the pump wall. Rook heard it too. He snapped left, pulling toward a steel door half hidden behind valve assemblies. Same geometry as the condo panel. Same kind of not on public plan space. Mitchell reached for the handle. Locked. He shoved once with his shoulder. Old scar tissue lit his spine white hot. The latch held. Another cry, weaker this time. He backed up, kicked near the lock plate, and the frame gave half an inch, enough to show fresh scrape marks and a wedge jammed from the inside. Someone had blocked the door and kept moving. His earpiece crackled back to life with Keen's voice, ragged and furious. Mitch! Status! Record room torched. Subjects moving lower branch with crate. Possible live victims behind locked pump door. Can you breach? Not fast enough alone. State team got boxed by local units on a hazmat perimeter. We're rerouting through Floodgate 6. 7-minute minimum. 7 minutes in a burn tunnel felt like an hour. Mitchell looked at the door, then at the fire gaining oxygen behind him, then at the branch where Beau and the others had vanished. He could chase evidence or hold for lives he couldn't reach yet. He chose life and stayed on the locked door until smoke forced him back. By the time he and Rook cleared to open air through a storm grate near Pier 14, His throat was raw, and his right hand was bleeding from punching steel. Keene met him in the alley behind a bait shop, face slick with rain and anger. "We have enough for emergency warrants if your footage survived, but we lost the drives, we lost hard records, and they know we're moving." Mitchell leaned against Brick, coughing black flecks. "We didn't lose all. I got faces, voices, jammer, arson." Keene held up his own tablet. "Your uplink dropped at first contact. Defense will argue manipulation from the local storage." Mitchell stared at him. "You said hard capture in Worcester. Only if transmission sustained." Jammer cut it before the subject IDs locked a chain. The setback landed like blunt force. Not gone, but wounded, contestable. And while they argued evidence standards, somewhere underground girls were still being moved. Keene shoved Mitchell toward the back seat of the unmarked sedan and handed him bottled water and a trauma wipe. "Sit. Breathe. You pass out now, I can't use you." Mitchell rinsed soot from his mouth and watched black water run onto pavement. Rook pressed against his knee, whining once, then went quiet. Keene paced 3 steps away, phone to ear, negotiating with a state judge for a midnight telephonic warrant while simultaneously dodging local command requests to coordinate through bracket leadership. Every sentence was a knife fight disguised as procedure. When he finally ended the call, he stood in the rain with both palms braced on the roof of the car, head down. For a long moment, he was not the controlled investigator Mitchell knew. He was just Mason Keene, 42, exhausted, wet through, trying to hold too many collapsing lines at once. He spoke without looking up. "Do you know why Worcester docks mattered to me?" Mitchell stayed silent. "My younger brother Tommy disappeared for 36 hours when he was 19. Heroin run gone bad. We found him alive in a storage unit because a rookie trooper ignored his sergeant and followed a dog hit behind a cinder block wall." Keene laughed once, a wrecked sound. "I built a career on never being that sergeant. Never being the guy who says clear when it isn't." He looked up then, eyes rimmed red from rain and something else. "And tonight I still got boxed by local uniforms while records burned 10 minutes away." "Mason." "No, let me finish." His voice shook now, anger thinning into fear. "I keep telling myself this is professional. This is jurisdiction. This is evidence law. But every time you go dark in a tunnel, I am back outside that storage unit, waiting to hear if there's a body inside. Every time." Mitchell didn't move. Keene swallowed hard. "You disappear into danger like you were built for it?" "Maybe you were. I wasn't built to keep watching it happen." Rain hammered the roof between them. He added quieter. "I ended us years ago because every call from overseas felt like pre-goodbye. You came home with pieces missing, and I told myself distance was mercy. Then Tommy died anyway, 3 years later, from a bad batch nobody traced. And mercy started feeling like cowardice." Mitchell's hand tightened on the water bottle until plastic creaked. Keene wiped his face with his sleeve, angry at himself for showing it. "So, yes, this case is about Tessa and those girls and corruption. It is also about me being done with polite losses, done signing condolence cards while men in suits call it tragedy." He drew one steadying breath, put the investigator mask back on, but the crack stayed visible. "I can't promise I can protect you from your own choices," he said. "I can promise I won't look away from them again." Mitchell nodded once. It was the only response either of them could carry right then. Keene's phone rang again. He answered, listened, and went still. "What?" Mitchell asked. Keene ended the call slowly. "Judge granted limited warrant on arson and unlawful confinement, specific to Marina sublevel pump corridor." He looked toward the dark harbor. and we just got a hit from a traffic cam. Deputy Chief Kincaid entering the old condo site at 2012 tonight. Off-duty vehicle, no logged purpose. Mitchell felt cold thread through the heat in his lungs. Keene continued, voice flattening into urgency. That means command-level oversight in motion now, not historical. They're actively cleaning. At 011, the crisis broke open. State Tactical finally cleared the fake hazmat perimeter and staged 2 blocks from Halstead Marina, but local dispatch flooded the area with unrelated calls, bar fight, possible shots fired, disabled vessel rescue, pulling units everywhere and muddying channel traffic. On scanner, Brackett Command kept repeating, "Stand by for a coordinated entry." No one coordinated anything. Keene bypassed them and ran a private channel through the relay phone. "Mitch, I have legal go for sub-level only. Federal wheels up from Boston, ETA 22. We need live confirmation of captives before defense gets injunction." Mitchell checked Rook's harness mount. The first camera had scorched in the tunnel heat. Keene's tech clipped on the spare, hands shaking from adrenaline. Then a new message hit Keene's tablet from an informant handle they'd seeded hours earlier. Bow moving tonight. Burn plus transfer. 2 girls, lower pump route, armed. Timestamp 0009. Mitchell looked up. "That's now," Keene nodded. "And listen to this." He played a 6-second intercepted voicemail pulled from a Marina employee phone. Reed's voice, unmistakable. "Dad said SWAT already scrubbed this lane. We're clean if we're fast." The line from Tessa's video, alive in present tense. A black SUV rolled past the mouth of the alley with lights off. Through rain-smeared glass, Mitchell caught a profile in front passenger seat. Calhoun. Not at HQ, not asleep. At the Marina. Keene saw it too. If Calhoun's here, they're not just delaying. They're running interference on entry points. Another call patched in from State Tactical Lead. "Main stairwell access to sub-level welded from inside. Torch marks fresh. We can breach, but it'll sound like thunder. Thunder would get captives killed or moved." Mitchell pulled the flood channel map from memory and pointed. "There's a silent route. Through drainage spur C, under pump room. Narrow but passable, single file." Keene hesitated 1 beat. The beat where fear and trust negotiated. Then he handed Mitchell the relay phone. "You go with Rook. I'll push tactical to hold perimeter and cut power on my mark. You get me eyes on victims. I trigger full breach regardless of local chatter." Mitchell took the phone, checked chamber on the sidearm they'd temporarily deputized under state authority, and crouched to Rook's level. "Find and hold," he whispered. Rook's ears pitched forward. As Mitchell moved toward the storm channel entrance, Keene caught his wrist briefly. "Don't trade your life for a clean shot." Mitchell met his eyes, rain running off both their faces. "I'm trading it for them getting out." He dropped into the concrete dark with Rook ahead. Camera light, a tiny green pulse swallowed by the tunnel. Behind them, engines idled. Radios hissed lies, and somewhere in the sublevel below Halstead Marina, armed sons of powerful men were already on the move with 2 sedated girls and a crate of evidence they thought would burn before dawn. Mitchell slid through the storm channel on elbows and knees, water to mid-forearm, Rook ghosting ahead with only the green camera light to mark him in the dark. The tunnel narrowed, then opened beneath a rusted catwalk grate. Above, fluorescent hum, boot steps, a woman's muffled sob. Mitchell went still and lifted the relay phone just high enough to catch a sliver through the grate. Pump room sublevel. 2 girls lay on rolling maintenance carts, wrists taped, mouths covered with oxygen masks that looked more like restraint than care. One stirred weakly, eyes fluttering. The other was motionless except for shallow chest rise. Bo Halstead stood over them with a pistol tucked at his back, rain shell unzipped, hair wet and wild. Dylan Mercer knelt by a milk crate of external hard drives, smashing one after another with a short-handled sledge. Reed Kincaid paced with a radio and a burner phone, voice sharp with panic. "Dad, stop saying hold position," Reed hissed. "State's already around the block." A voice crackled through speaker tinny and familiar. Older, controlled, used to command. Deputy Chief Owen Kincaid. "Then use pump, route B, and move now. Calhoun says Anderson is in the area. If you see him, he does not leave with footage." Mitchell's jaw tightened. He angled the phone to capture faces, voices, girls, weapons, then whispered into his throat mic. Keen. Visual on 2 live captives. 3 primary suspects armed. Active evidence destruction. Deputy Chief on recorded command line. The earpiece hissed, then Keen's voice cut through, tight and immediate. "Got it. Warrants expanded. Breach teams rolling on my mark. You are not required to engage. Not required." Above, Dylan kicked the ruined drives into a plastic barrel and dumped accelerant over the pile. He struck a lighter. Mitchell looked at the girls. "Can't wait," he whispered. He backed from the grate and found the service hatch under it. A bolted maintenance panel. 3 bolts already stripped, 1 holding. He holstered the phone, set his shoulder, and drove up hard. Pain exploded down his scarred back, but the bolt sheared and the panel popped inward with a metallic crack. All 3 men snapped toward the sound. For half a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Bo yanked his pistol. "You." Mitchell was already in motion. "Rook, take!" Rook launched straight for Bo's gun arm, teeth clamping just below wrist as the first shot fired wild into a pump casing. Sparks spit. Bo screamed, stumbling sideways, slamming into a valve wheel. Reed dove behind the carts and came up with a compact carbine from under a tarp. Dylan kicked the flaming barrel, trying to spill fire across the floor between Mitchell and the girls. Mitchell fired 2 controlled shots into the concrete at Reed's feet, forcing him low, then moved through smoke and heat toward the nearest cart. The conscious girl recoiled when he ripped her tape loose. "Police K9. You're coming with me. Can you stand?" She tried, knees buckling. He drugged us. Stay with me." Reed popped up and fired. A round punched the wall 6 inches from Mitchell's head. Mitchell shoved the girl behind a pump column and returned fire, clipping Reed's shoulder. Reed dropped the carbine and crawled, blood smearing the wet floor. Dylan grabbed the second girl's cart and shoved it toward the open trench at the edge of the room. "Don't!" Mitchell barked. Dylan laughed high and cracked. "You don't get evidence." He rammed the cart again. One wheel tipped over the trench lip. Mitchell made a split-second choice, holstered, sprinted, and caught the cart frame with both hands as it tipped. His lower back screamed white heat. His boots slid on fuel-slick concrete. Dylan tried to push harder, face twisted with effort. Rook, still latched to Bo, released on command and redirected, slamming into Dylan's thigh and knocking him backward into the flaming barrel. Dylan hit hard, jacket catching ember. He shrieked and rolled, beating at fire. Bo, bleeding and furious, switched the pistol to his left hand and aimed at Rook. Mitchell dropped the cart, drew, and had Bo center mass in his sights. For a breath, it narrowed to a clean shot. Anger, grief, funerals. Tessa's mother's hands shaking in church light, all of it lined up behind his finger. Then the half-conscious girl on the second cart coughed once, wet and terrified. Mitchell pivoted off Bo and put a round through the overhead light bank instead. The room plunged into strobing emergency red. Bo flinched, lost his sight picture, and fired into darkness. Mitchell moved blind by sound, slammed Bo into a steel pillar, wrenched the pistol free, and drove him face first to concrete. Outside the pump room, heavy impacts thundered. Breach charges at last. Reed crawled toward a side corridor, gasping into his radio. "Dad! Dad! We're compromised!" From that corridor came another figure, in tactical black without helmet, sidearm up. Calhoun. He saw Mitchell first and shouted, "Drop your weapon! Drop it now!" Mitchell didn't lower his gun. "Step away from the suspect, Calhoun." Calhoun fired. The round clipped Mitchell's vest plate and spun him sideways. He hit a knee, breath gone. Rook exploded between them on pure instinct, hitting Calhoun at the forearm before he could fire again. Calhoun screamed, lost the pistol, and drove a knee into Rook's ribs. Rook held. Mitchell forced air back into his lungs, got up, and struck Calhoun across the jaw with the pistol frame. Calhoun dropped. Mitchell cuffed him one-handed, with a zip tie ripped from his vest. The breach wall blew in behind them. State Tactical flooded the room in stacked formation, lasers cutting red haze. "State! Hands, hands!" Mitchell shoved Bo away and raised both hands, weapon dangling by trigger guard. "2 victims alive," he shouted. "EMS now. Armed suspects down. Deputy Chief on recorded command audio." One of the girls started screaming. Another voice, thin and shaking but clear, came from behind the pump column where the first girl crouched. She pointed at Reed, then at his dropped phone still on speaker. "That voice, on transports, that's his dad. That's him. He was there before." Silence hit for one stunned second. Then tactical medics moved in, cutting restraints, swapping oxygen, packaging both girls for evac. Reed, blood loss paling him, stared at Mitchell with pure hate. "You're dead," he whispered. "You don't get to do this to us." Mitchell looked down at him, chest heaving. "I didn't do this to you." Sirens finally rose above ground, real this time, converging from every side of the harbor. The fight should have ended there. It didn't. As Tactical secured the pump room, Keene came in through the breach, soaked and furious, flanked by 2 agents in windbreakers marked FBI. He took one look at Bo, Dillon, Reed, and Calhoun zip-cuffed on wet concrete and said, "Read them all." A state trooper started Miranda while evidence techs bagged guns, drives, radios, jammer components. Mitchell handed over his sidearm and chest cam card with bloody fingers. "Continuity statement on camera," Keene said. Mitchell nodded into lens, voice rough. "Officer Mitchell Anderson, temporarily deputized under State Bureau authorization. Entry time 0036 via drainage spur C. Observed suspects Bo Halstead, Dillon Mercer, Reed Kincaid in possession of 2 restrained female victims and active evidence destruction. Lieutenant Calhoun entered armed, discharged weapon at me. Force used to neutralize threats and preserve life." He finished and nearly folded when the adrenaline dropped. Rook pressed against his leg, limping but alert. Then the radio war began. Over open channel, local dispatch kept calling conflicting instructions. Hold scene for bracket command. Do not transfer suspects off-site pending local review. Deputy Chief en route to assume authority. Keene snapped a handset from a trooper and keyed in over them. Negative. State and federal joint scene. Any interference will be logged as obstruction under active warrant. A black SUV screeched to the marina ramp seconds later. Deputy Chief Owen Kincaid stepped out bareheaded, rain running off his collar, rage wrapped in command voice. "What the hell is this?" he shouted as he stormed toward the sublevel entrance. "Those are 18 and over," Keene cut in. Kincaid jabbed a finger at Mitchell. "That man is suspended and unstable. This is contamination." Mitchell, still on one knee beside Rook, lifted his head. "You were on speaker 15 minutes ago telling your son to use Route B." Kincaid's face didn't change, but his eyes flicked once, tiny, involuntary, toward Reed. Keene stepped between them, produced a printed telephonic warrant, and held it inches from Kincaid's chest. "Deputy Chief Owen Kincaid, you are hereby ordered to stand down from the scene. We have recorded command audio, witness identification, and probable cause for conspiracy and obstruction. Keep walking, and you can do it uncuffed." Kincaid laughed once. "You think a midnight warrant survives morning court?" From behind him came a new voice, amplified by body cam and volume both. "Let's test it." U.S. Attorney Leah Sandoval climbed out of a second vehicle with 2 federal marshals. She didn't hurry. Didn't need to. "Deputy Chief, your phone and duty radio are now subject to immediate seizure. Refusal elevates." Kincaid pivoted, recalculating. "On what grounds?" "Trafficking conspiracy, civil rights deprivation under color of law, evidence tampering, controlled substance diversion." She glanced past him toward the pump room. "And possibly homicide." For the first time, real uncertainty crossed his face. Behind tape, Calhoun started yelling from the ground. "This is a setup. Anderson fired first." Keene pointed to a trooper. "Play his body cam." The clip rolled right there in the rain from Calhoun's own unit. Audio crisp. "If you see him, he does not leave with footage." Then muzzle flash from Calhoun's weapon. Calhoun went silent. Dillon, shivering in a thermal blanket while medics dressed burns, tried a different angle. "My father will—" "Your father is in custody at Mercer General right now," Sandoval said without looking at him. "Keep talking." Bo spit blood and seawater at Mitchell's boots. "You should have shot me in there. Would have been cleaner." Mitchell met his stare. "Clean isn't the job." Reed, pale and shaking from the shoulder wound, craned his neck toward his father at the ramp. "Dad?" Owen Kincaid didn't answer. He took one step backward instead. Marshals moved in, turned him, cuffed him. He did not resist, but he kept his chin high like the camera was still his. "You're making a mistake," he said to Sandoval. She nodded toward the girls being loaded into ambulances. "No, Deputy Chief. We're correcting one." As the first ambulance door slammed, one of the rescued girls grabbed Mitchell's sleeve with an IV-taped hand. "They used this tunnel before," she whispered, voice shredded. "More than once. I heard them joke. SWAT already scrubbed it. I thought that meant we were invisible." Mitchell looked at her, then at Rook, then at the dark mouth of the corridor. "Not anymore," he said. By 3:20, the marina sublevel looked like a war room and a crime lab grafted together. Portable lights turned rain to silver needles. Evidence markers dotted every puddle. The scorched record room vented smoke into the harbor wind, while forensic photographers moved in careful arcs. Mitchell sat on an equipment case while a medic peeled his vest and checked the bruise blooming across his ribs, where Calhoun's round had hit plate. Nearby, a veterinary tech examined Rook's side. "No puncture," she said. "Deep contusion, maybe cracked rib. He'll hate kennel rest." Rook gave her a disgusted look that proved her right. Keene came over with 2 coffees and set one on the case beside Mitchell. His hands were still shaking, though less than before. "Federal took primary," he said. "State keeps kidnapping and assault counts. Bracket command is quarantined from case files." Mitchell wrapped both hands around the cup without drinking. "Girls? Alive. One in ICU from respiratory suppression, one stable and talking." Keene hesitated. She already gave a statement, naming all 3 plus a uniformed escort with deputy chief voice. "We'll run voice match at first light." A long silence sat between them, not empty this time, just heavy. Mitchell finally said, "You got there." Keene let out a humorless breath. "You got there first." Across the lot, Elena Velez stood just beyond tape in a borrowed raincoat, having arrived with a victim advocate and a priest. Keene touched Mitchell's shoulder and tipped his head toward her. Mitchell stood slowly, every joint arguing, and walked over. Elena searched his face before she spoke. They said 2 girls came out alive. They did." She closed her eyes, hand over mouth, and for a moment she couldn't get words out. When she did, they broke on the way. "My daughter tried so hard." Mitchell nodded. "She broke it open." Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small laminated photo of Tessa, the same one from Memorial Board, and pressed it into his hand. "Then don't let them bury her inside this paperwork." "I won't." She looked down past him to Rook, who had limped over and sat with military seriousness despite obvious pain. Elena crouched and touched his neck gently. "They laughed at you too, didn't they?" she whispered to the dog. Rook leaned into her palm. At dawn, under temporary floodlights outside evidence intake, Keene called Mitchell over to a laptop where a digital forensics specialist scrubbed through incoming device dumps. "We recovered partial cache from Rook's original harness unit," the specialist said. "First call-out night. Camera wasn't officially activated, but it auto-buffered on motion and held encrypted fragments." She clicked play. Grainy pre-dawn footage appeared. Condo service entrance, timestamp 2:47, hours before Tessa's 911 call. A city SUV pulled into frame. Driver door opened. Deputy Chief Owen Kincaid stepped out, looked both ways, and entered through a side access with a key card. No SWAT presence, no emergency. He was in the building before the victim called for help. Mitchell felt the world tilt, then settle into hard focus. Keene stared at the screen, jaw set. Premeditation support just got teeth. The specialist rewound and froze on Kincaid's face, clear enough for a jury from the back row. Sunlight edged over the harbor cranes as if it were in any ordinary morning. It wasn't. 9 days later, the courtroom smelled like wet wool and old wood polish. Reporters packed both sides. Families filled the back rows. Marshals lined the walls. Bo, Dillon, Reed, Calhoun, Owen Kincaid, and Doctor. Grant Mercer stood in a row in County Orange and tailored silence, while the clerk read counts that seemed to keep multiplying: kidnapping, trafficking conspiracy, aggravated assault, controlled substance diversion, tampering with evidence, obstruction, civil rights violations under color of law, and homicide enhancements pending toxicology links. Cole Halstead sat at defense table, gray-faced, hands clasped so hard his knuckles blanched. His own indictment filed separately that morning. When the prosecutor played the tunnel clip, Dillon dropped his eyes. When she played Calhoun's body cam audio, Calhoun stared straight ahead, jaw grinding. When she displayed the 0247 condo frame of Deputy Chief Kincaid, an audible murmur moved through the gallery like wind through dry leaves. Judge Holloway looked down over her glasses at the defense bench. Bail denied on all principal defendants. Reed turned half around, searching the crowd for his father on instinct, then remembered and faced front again. In the hallway after, microphones chased Mitchell and Keene both. Mitchell gave one sentence only. A girl called for help. A dog alerted. We should have listened the first time. Keene gave none. He just kept moving. That evening, long after press vans left, Mitchell stood at Tessa Velez's graveside under a sky the color of lead. Fresh flowers leaned in the wind. Elena stood a few feet away with her rosary wrapped tight in one fist. Mitchell knelt, set his old sealed trident coin beside Tessa's photo marker, and let his hand rest there a moment. I'm sorry it took this long, he said quietly. Elena touched his shoulder once. You came back. He nodded, stood, and stepped away to make a call he'd avoided for nearly a year. Aaron Pike answered on the second ring, voice wary. Mitch? Mitchell watched harbor lights flicker beyond the cemetery wall. I should have connected C-17B sooner, he said. Your boy, this case. Same pipeline. I didn't want to see it. That's on me. Static, then a breath on the other end. What happens now? Mitchell looked down at Rook. Bandage side, unwavering stance. Now, he said, I don't look away again. 3 weeks after the Marina raid, Brackett Harbor Police held a stripped-down ceremony in the vehicle bay because no one trusted big stages anymore. Captain Runnels read from a card, voice tight, as he reversed Mitchell's suspension on record and issued formal commendation for life-saving action under extreme threat. Mitchell accepted without smiling. Then the state K-9 coordinator stepped up with a small blue citation ribbon and clipped it to Rook's harness. For repeated final alerts on concealed confinement corridor during prior operations and for direct apprehension under gunfire. Applause started uncertain, then built. From the back, a young patrol officer who'd laughed in that first hallway lowered his head and clapped anyway. Afterward, sirens rose outside, another dawn call, another stack-up forming somewhere in town. Mitchell clipped Rook's lead, checked the fit of his vest, and headed for the Tahoe. Keene caught him at the bay door, coffee in one hand, case file in the other. You good to work? He asked. Mitchell glanced at the street signs beyond the lot, still bearing old names, but no longer untouchable. Yeah, he said, opening the rear door for Rook. This time we clear lower first. Rook jumped in, tail thumping once against steel, and the two of them rolled out into the siren light as the harbor woke. Same city, different silence.